Okay.
And yours is on.
Yep. Yours is not.
Okay, hold on.
Yours is off.
Should there be a light on this?
Oh, you want it on? Do you want
Is this charging yours? Mine does not appear to be
Yeah,
charging.
there should be a light
Oh,
on
do
it.
you want to make sure this? Do you want to make sure it works?
Oh, the mic?
This crack is.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will you please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for. No action was taken in closed session. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now we're going to move on to communications. We'll start with public comment. Members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during board consideration of that item. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when that specific item is called by the board president. If in order to speak, please, if you want to comment in person, please fill out a request to be heard card and give it to the board assistant, and your name will be called during the public comment on that agenda item or during special agenda item. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. If you are watching online and would like to comment, there are 2 different ways you can do it. If you'd like to comment via Assembly Gamut, all you have to do is enter your name and email address, and the board assistant will provide your comment to the board. If you're watching us via YouTube, you can also comment there in the live chat section, and the board assistant will share your comment. Is there anyone here who would like to? Oh, by the way, this is now our public comment section where you have an opportunity to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. If you would like to do so, please know that because it's not an agendized item, we will not be able to take action on that item, but do know that we are listening, and we'll do what we can to help address whatever that issue is. With that, is there anyone who would like to speak to the board on an item? I see we have one card here. Is there anyone else, though, who would like to speak to the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Please come on up and get a card. And we're going to start with Mr. Robert Smith.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Robert Smith. I'm a third-year law student at the McGeorge School of Law. I'm currently enrolled in a public education law course, during which the curriculum is to attend a school board meeting and discuss either a pending legislative policy or proposed change to a school board policy. The purpose of tonight, I will be discussing the recently approved AB 2350, which is an amendment to the Brown Act. A little bit of background beyond my status as a third-year law student. I'm actually a product of the Robla School District. I attended Robla Preschool. Both of my parents actually also worked for the district. My dad at Bell Avenue, my mom at Robla Preschool. So I'm very happy to be able to speak before you this evening. So just as a brief reminder, the Brown Act is a legislative policy in the state of California which strives to ensure public transparency and public access to the functions of public agencies, including local agencies and school boards. 2350 specifically is an amendment to the emergency notification procedures. In the case where prompt action is necessary by a public agency, it will allow for an emergency meeting Currently, all notifications to requesting parties, including news media and members of the community who have deposited their telephone numbers with the board, those notifications must go through telephone lines. This act was proposed by an assembly member out of Folsom to essentially modernize the Brown Act and allow for notification by email instead. It also recognizes that in case of natural disasters, phone lines may often be down or busy, and so can internet services. So it actually will allow for a waiver of the notice and posting requirements until after the emergency meeting, at which time internet access has been restored. Essentially, this bill has actually been chaptered and approved by the governor already, so it is pending approval upon the close of the legislative period. Essentially, the purpose of my comment here today is to note that while the Brown Act may seem arbitrary in many of its ways, there is a concerted effort by the state legislator to ensure that it remains modern and functional as our methods and preferences of communication evolve in the modern day. So with that, I see the rest of my time. I would like to thank you each again for the opportunity to speak before you with this, this period of public comment. So thank you both, or thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've done us proud.
Thank you for the update to the, oh my gosh, my brain blanked to the Brown Act. That way I don't have to reread that section to understand it.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Do we have any comments via Gamut or via YouTube? Nope. No comments. All right, so with that, we'll move on to, there we go here. We'll now move on to reports, and we will start with the Robla Education Foundation.
I bet you it's not on.
Oh.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. In that case, it's a first. Anyways, the foundation's been busy the last few days, as all of you know, because you're all on my distribution list.
Thank you.
Because of your participation in the fireworks booth. I'm going to basically, in the next week or so, we'll cut off the grant request. I don't want to drop the balance down too low, but we're still looking good. A balance right now of 21, but as you saw this week, we have several pending that so far they've all been approved, and I figure around capping things down around between 17 and 18,000 for a balance, and keep that going. I've also been throwing something around in my mind as far as the staffing next year to help us all with the staffing and get that off of my hands. Is later on, and probably in January, have you go to cabinet, because that seemed to be that worked real well. You go into cabinet. I had 2 schools that listened. So, but this year we've got 6 school sites. Designate each school site for a particular day and say, okay, this is how many people we need. This is the shifts that we need staffed, and have the sites provide the staffing for that day using whatever means they need, parent groups, parents, staff members, and take that burden off of me of trying to recruit, because they don't listen to me anymore. So that's something I've been throwing around, and we'll throw it around some more, but hopefully that will be a better way to do it. We've got 7 days to cover with 6 sites, and I'm going to ask that all 6 sites provide coverage for the 4th, which is our most difficult day to cover. So with that, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we have Robla Teachers Association. CSEA. All right, Superintendent's report.
Good evening. Had a busy last 2 weeks, so I'm just going to share. So today was the last lunchtime concert series at Bell Avenue in honor of Latin Heritage Month. Kids really enjoyed it. It was in the cafeteria, really loud that you can actually hear it out on the kindergarten TK playground. So it was really good. Last night I attended the SCOE board dinner, and the topic was on civic education. Tuesday, I attended the Sac City Council meeting because they had a resolution for Filipino American History Month, which is celebrated in October. So that was nice. Last Saturday was the annual Walk for Health at the Robla Community Park across from Taylor, sponsored by the Health Education Council, and I want to thank them because this is the second year that they gave both Taylor and Glenwood $1,000. So both principals were there. They were super excited, and I'm not sure if they realized they were going to get another $1,000 donation. Last Friday, San Lorenzo Unified School District, their executive cabinet visited Robla School District. They actually walked through classes at Robla Elementary, and they were looking at how our teachers were using the 21st century classrooms. Our teachers were amazing, and all their staff mentioned that. They were super excited of how engaged our students were, and they made a comment that they thought that our students enjoyed learning, and I said, that's great. We had another great Latin Heritage Parent Empowerment Dinner. It was packed. So I know we added 8 tables, I believe, from last year, and then we had to add 2 more. So a great evening. Another successful Terrific 10, and again, I want to thank the Robla Education Foundation because the students are super excited to get their certificate to order books from Scholastic, so thank you. Sam Drazen is the CEO that we are in partnership with Changing Perspective, and they provided a professional development for our Robla and Taylor staff. Next week is our fall break, so parents, we don't have school. Tomorrow is a minimum day. And finally, we had our first attendance challenge winner, and I'm excited to announce that it was Robla Elementary School that won. Yay. And I believe they are getting their reward tomorrow, Kona Ice.
All right.
So they're excited. They did a great job. And we do want to recognize all the schools. They really did a great job. And I know our goal is always 95%. And most of the schools reach there, but we were excited. So I have to think of more challenges. End of my report.
Excellent. Okay, move on to board member reports. We'll start with Trustee Devine.
Nothing at this time?
Trustee Cardona.
Nothing to report.
Trustee Hamilton Stark.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Barnes.
I'll be quick. As Superintendent Chen said, we had the SCOE dinner last night. That was great with an awesome speech on civics. And speaking of which, just want to remind people that ballots have been mailed out and hopefully received. And no matter what your political affiliation is or belief, please vote. And please make sure you return your ballots. It's very, very important. That's it.
All right. And I too had a chance to attend the Sacramento County School Boards Association event, and it was we had actually really good conversation about talking about how we can possibly get our students engaged more and learn more about civics. So don't be surprised if you hear something about that coming up. I had a chance to attend the Latin Heritage Dinner. It was phenomenal. It was packed well before it even started. I've known Councilman Guerra for almost 15 years, and I even had a chance to learn some things about him. He gave a very good talk just about, his growing up, how he came here, and it was really, really inspirational. And I think those who were in attendance really enjoyed it. I also had a chance to attend the Robla Family Festival at Taylor Street School. I will say that Principal Crisp represented us well. It was actually very well attended. I was surprised how well attended it was. And I took my granddaughter Jane with me. So I thought I was going to be able to get in there, give a little talk, hang out a little bit, and leave. But she was insistent on getting as much face painting and playing of games as possible. And also proud to say, a grandparent of a Robla Mustang who won the attendance challenge. Go Mustangs! And that's the end of my report. All right, we're going to move on to presentations and information. We're going to start with Transportation Services update on electric bus fleet.
Well, let's start talking. Good evening, President DeLuz, board members, Superintendent Chen, everybody who is present. We are presenting today our experience, Robla's experience with electric buses, and this is as a request of President DeLuz at one of the prior meetings. So just to give a background, back in 2020, we applied for a grant for 5 electric buses. There were 3 large ones and 2 small ones. As in February, we received the 3 large ones. The 2 small ones, electric, the Lion, they don't make those anymore, so we are going to transfer our grant to a different bus manufacturer. So the grant is still in effect. So this is our experience. Unfortunately, when we applied for the grant and we got electric buses, we were so excited. We will have electric buses. Our students will be driving in AC. Our bus drivers will be happy. Unfortunately, our experience has not been great. And again, we're talking about our buses are called the first generation Lion. The electric buses are 2023. We have not been using them for various reasons. Most of this, a lot of are computerized buses, so a lot of lights are on. So we are not driving until we say this is 100% is drivable, where we feel our students and our bus drivers are safe. So as of today, are the 3 buses. One is in a working condition. So it's just an example. So again, the district overall will not pay for these buses because we apply for a grant, but however we're paying a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And to give you an example, yes, I mean, you can read this, but we have these buses for 8 months. A lot of them, they have less than 1,000 miles, so we cannot be able to use them. And most of those miles are after it's repaired, test driving, and something else goes wrong. So it's just like a back and forth. So we have to submit tickets, and we have to be online because we are competing with other districts to fixing those electric buses. So when we purchased the bus, there was different mileage range. We purchased at the point where we thought was the best, 150 miles. A full charge, it can only last not even 100 miles. So, and what we're hearing now, part of through her connection with other districts, is that those districts who implement those electric buses were the first ones like 4 years ago. As of today, many of them are not using those electric buses because to replace the batteries is a really charge, so just really hard to maintain. I think at one point I want to take this. It's not in here, but each of those buses cost $250,000. So there's a lot of money. So to repair the battery is just when it's not even when it will not even work again. So it's something that districts have taken into consideration. You see some buses around and driving, but a lot of districts are having similar issues as us. So again, the positives when we were excited, we will have air conditioning, or there will be a lot more space. But unfortunately, the positives we have not been able to. Our exciting has been we're still waiting in a lot of repairs as at this point. I think Ms. Brown summarized this really well. We are not giving up on these buses. We have 17 total buses. Out of those, 3 are electric. We are required to crash 3 of those buses in order for the grant to pay us the money back. So as of today, we have not done yet because we cannot rely on these electric buses yet. So we're monitoring that. So, and besides this, this is just the buses. We also invest significant amount in the infrastructure to charge those buses. We also got a grant for that, but did not cover 100% of the cost. So Ms. Brown, we work together in this presentation. She knows every detail that is on this slide. You have any other questions regarding the electric buses or what specific issues, we are available to answer any questions.
I have a quick question. I just want to make sure I understood correctly. You said these are the first gen buses, but going all the way back to, did you say 2020, 2021? Are those the same buses that we have now?
So we placed the order in 2020, the buses weren't even manufactured.
Oh, no,
No.
I'm sorry. Let me explain better. The other buses in other districts that are having issues, are those from like the 2020 and our buses are having the same problems?
Previous generations, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics on their problems, other than I was told their batteries failed and it's
Okay.
too pricey to repair them or replace them. I even talked to the manufacturer about that because they're the same brand we bought. And they said they're probably going to try to work with those districts. Like, they didn't deny it. They're going to work with those districts to try to give them a trade-in value, that there's still a lot of good left on those buses that Lion Electric would like to get back and repurpose, I guess. But it is kind of daunting when you see a storage yard full of,
Yes.
I'm talking like Twin Rivers that, spearheaded the electric movement around here. There's a big portion of their buses that are just parked. So anyways, we did go with a different style bus that had a larger range, and really excited about that and all of that. And so far, like you've heard, it hasn't been a real great start to it. um, a lot of tough conversations with that company to try to get to where we're at now, and we have been driving at least one bus. You might have seen it around or heard it because it makes noise when it slows down. But we've been able to try to keep one on the road these last few weeks, and so that's all promising. I'm not going to say the one we're driving is in a perfect 100% shape, because there is something that still needs to be repaired on that, but it's still drivable and it's safe.
Okay, this is all very disheartening. Thank you guys for like sticking it out and dealing with all the frustration. This is not what the board wanted when we voted for this. We were all so excited and, moving to the future, and it's just very disheartening to hear that it did not turn out that way.
Well, I'm still hopeful it will get better. I mean, that's just how I have to be. I mean, it's the way we're moving. We're supposed to have clean vehicles. And so, yeah, I'm still hopeful. Maybe next report will be better.
And then I have another question. You said we have to crush three buses. Are they going to make us crush those before these are repaired?
So I've talked to them, and no, they're
Okay.
not. But they should have been crushed by now, but I've been in communication with everybody to say I can't do it. I wouldn't be able to operate unless I have buses that work. And yes, all school buses have problems, but this is a little different. It's like when a high voltage light's blinking in your face, it's like, should you keep driving it? Like, do you take your chances with 80 kids? No, it's too new for us. We're not comfortable with that, and so we're not driving it until they fix that. Oh, it's a software glitch. Okay, fix it.
So we are currently out. Oh, sorry. So we're currently out $750,000 for the transportation budget? Or did the grant pay for it up front?
No, they did not pay for it.
Okay, they won't pay for it until those other three buses are crushed.
That's my
correct.
understanding.
Okay.
We got reached when we apply, we notify which buses, the A's, the miles, so the buses were identified, and that's a requirement, quality, airborne, that we have.
But financially, we're out $750,000 because we had to pay out of pocket for these to start with, right?
Our cost is a positive cash flow, so yes.
Okay.
If you see it that way, yes, but we have a grant that will pay us that. So we are
Only when we crush
We have it.
buses and we need them.
Okay. I would like to make a correction. They're $450,000 each.
Oh,
Okay, so we're talking about more.
so almost 1.5 million.
Yeah, that's the portion
Okay.
that's a portion, the 250, that's the portion that you just described, the district contribute to that, because that's the portion that we have to pay this. In the grant is,
The difference.
different companies are contributing to
difference.
that. We have to put out from the 250.
Is this a federal or a state grant?
It's a combination of both. It's actually the state, federal, and even local. That's how it was between that. The majority come from the feds. Though. The majority. That was like a federal thing. And then California says, so you contribute this, do that, you do this.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to get a report on this item was because, I mean, this has become a pretty big issue on a national basis, and I just wanted to know if I was hoping and praying that our experience was unique and that everything was going well. It's kind of sad to hear that it's not. One of the things, and I don't know if this would be more appropriate to do as a resolution or as a letter from the board, but maybe writing a letter to the appropriate people at both the state and the federal level, and just having them waive that requirement that we get rid of buses that, quite frankly, we need, because the ones that we bought are not working. And it'd be one thing if it were one model bus in one, but this is once again, this is a nationwide problem. And I think that school districts ought to be let off the hook, since, in essence, the legislation and the policy got ahead of the technology. Clearly, we see that now. It's almost as if they passed legislation and that created the market for these buses. It would have been better if the buses would have been done, perfected, tested out there in the free market, and then we would know that they're functional. In any case, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it would be more appropriate to do like maybe a board resolution, and then send that off to the appropriate folks to see if we might get someone to maybe sponsor legislation or something along those lines? What do you guys think?
I like that idea.
I do like that idea, yeah.
Okay, I'll do some research to see what other districts may also
Excellent.
be doing.
Quick question. The three buses that are supposed to be crushed, did we have three buses marked to be pulled out of use?
Yeah, we had to identify 5 buses because we've actually ordered 5.
Uh-huh.
And so we've identified those, and out of the 5, 3 are used at least once a week, or, they're used quite often, so
And
I like your idea.
what was the criteria for selecting those 5?
But age,
Age and mileage. So we had to have some buses that qualify, and that are qualified based on that.
And how are these 5 doing?
say that again?
How are
How
these
are
5 buses doing?
They're 3 of the 5 are doing quite well.
Okay.
One doesn't run at all, but we keep it running. It needs about $35,000 repair. So we're not doing that because we're supposed to crush it. So we keep it inspected every 45 days like we're supposed to, because the way I look at that bus is worth a lot of money for a trade-in.
Yeah.
So I could easily get rid of that one and then, work on the other ones. But it makes me really nervous at this point.
I have a question. And I'm just trying to don't laugh at me. I'm just trying to wrap this around my brain. But we have buses from this company called Lion.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's equivalent to a Tesla. And we don't want Tesla anymore. We want Honda. Is it possible to cancel the order for the 2 buses that haven't arrived to get buses from another electric company?
So we did go with a different company for the other 2 buses. So we're going with a company called A to Z Bus Sales, and we've purchased from them in the past, and they have a good reputation. But honestly, when I talk to other districts, all electric buses are having some kind of problems. It takes a little bit to get all the kinks worked out and get them on the road.
So that's, even when we apply for this grant, Lion, they did not have these buses, right? That's exactly said. We will work on creating those buses, and this is what the product. And so we were part of that, and we were fortunately that we kind of wait a little, retroactive. Like people who had the buses earlier, the problems were even bigger than us, especially the bus.
Okay, so following up on what Trustee Hamilton Starks asked, the A to Z buses. Okay, and I know nothing about electric buses or Teslas or electric cars. So these buses, the A to Z ones, can we plug them in the same way we plug in the Lion buses, or we will have to purchase other equipment or anything? There's nothing proprietary.
Yeah, our chargers, our infrastructure is kind of universal.
Mhm.
Like in bus world, you can use different brands. And the two that are still left to receive are small special needs buses. So those are the two we're working on getting.
A question. You said the Lions recognized her first edition or generations has some major problems. And I think you say something about they made reimburse or thinking about it or working on it or
So
and give us some money back or
Yeah, it was just.
they mentioned that for the buses that are sitting in a boneyard somewhere with Twin Rivers, that they will probably be working with Twin Rivers to try to work a deal to buy those back from them so they can put money to a new one. You know how sales
and
people are.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that's for us. I don't know if you're familiar, but where our transportation office is, Lions Sacramento shop is right next door to us. So I really had like high hopes that we would get good service and all that, but we get put in line just like the rest of them, and they deployed a lot of these buses in our area. So the repairs take a long time to get to and all that. But moving forward, once all the kinks are worked out, it'll probably be a much better relationship and they won't be scared when they see me, things like that. So
I wonder if California's lemon law applies to school buses.
tell them that. I said, we're in
They are yellow, I mean.
there's a lemon law. So they really got excited about that and they said, okay, we're going to ground all of them and we're going to go through each one by one. And they really did. And, we're actually able to drive one now and we've been able to drive two at times. So we're a lot farther along than we were like 4 months ago, I guess.
Hey, I have one more question, and I'm curious, why is it that our three electric buses have air conditioning, but our older buses don't? Was it an option or not an option, or did we just decide that it's really hot and we should get air conditioning in these buses?
So I think there's like I've been doing this a long time. So back in the day, they did offer air conditioners that didn't work. It'd be like this huge unit at the front of the bus, maybe could keep the driver cold, but it never was enough to recirculate air for the rest of the bus. And so recently, I would say within the last 5 years, they've created an AC for a bus that works similar to a charter bus. Like it actually can cool from the back to the front and all of that. So the last diesel bus we purchased, we did purchase an air conditioner on it, and it works. So the technology really wasn't there before. We had two other buses that had AC, and it didn't work. So we then bought some buses without AC, and I don't know. I mean, back then, I don't know. It never felt like it got that hot for the kids on the buses, but somehow we've changed our start times or start dates and change end dates. We do summer school longer. We do it all day. It's not over at 12. There's all these things that now the kids are in these hot buses. So AC is kind of needed.
and how old is our old bus?
Our oldest bus,
Uh-huh.
I think it's a 2003. I didn't really check that.
And I just Googled it. Lemon law applies to buses in California.
What'd you say?
Lemon law applies to buses in California.
Do they say electric buses?
It says buses, including, hold on, here are the reasons. The vehicle has a defect that impairs its use, value, or safety. The manufacturer or dealer has made at least 2 unsuccessful attempts to repair the defect.
Well, like I said, I'm not trying to.
I know. I'm just letting.
Yeah.
I really don't want to disappoint the process, but I
Right.
did threaten lemon law to them and a lot of other threats. But that was one I just threw out there one day, and they got really excited about that one. But
What?
about returning them, yeah, about the lemon
Because
law
they
and
want
returning
it
them.
back, because then they will give us half the price we paid for them, and then they can sell it again for twice the price.
Yeah, Yeah, to me, I mean, I am getting an extension on our warranty and things like that because the fact that they're just sitting there unused, should our warranty start? I mean, is it degrading our batteries? You know, there's so much stuff I don't even know, but I think like that. So,
Yeah.
This may be something we need to keep in mind if the state demands that we can't be reimbursed until we crush those other vehicles. This little loophole right here with the live-in law may be something we really need later.
I mean, it is hard to pass up a free bus, but
Yeah.
you know, like right now, I feel like I'm learning a lesson on free is not always the best.
I don't hear anything that was free about this. Yes, there was a grant, but we had to pay out of pocket first. We have to give up 3 of our buses to get reimbursed. Each of them was reimbursed up to $250,000, but the buses cost $450,000.
No, there's
I
more,
don't hear a
there's
reimbursement.
more funding than that for each bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of the funding was paid up front directly to the manufacturer. And then what Gerardo's talking about, what we came out of pocket, what is left. And once we crush the buses, we'll get reimbursed for that.
To me, it just sounds like one of those rebates you get at Costco if you send something in that never comes in the mail.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
We
your
do.
time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we very much appreciate all the hard work you're doing on this. And, you know, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew this is an issue that is being dealt with, that districts nationwide are dealing with this issue. And I was just hoping that we were the anomaly overnight.
Watching this, Fred.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to say the local news never covers any negative coverage on these electric buses. And I'm, you know, I mean, I don't really want them to come and talk to me because I don't want to be that person, but it's surprising to me that nobody ever has anything bad to say from my experience.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, now we're going to move to facilities update. Caller Flores Winters.
Good evening, folks. Just before I get started on this, just wanted to acknowledge and thank the Robla School District for hosting the San Lorenzo Unified School District last week. Just a bit of feedback over there. Those folks were coming up here because they had heard about the things that you had done in terms of your facilities, your educational program. And I think one of the things that I really want to compliment the board, the staff, superintendent on is that a lot of people do facilities and they never do the professional development that is needed to run those facilities. And I think one of the things that the administrative staff at San Lorenzo saw was that when you put in the time and the dedication to those professional development hours, that the educational program has the flexibility to utilize those particular functionalities that you have. They had no idea prior to that what it was that why a classroom would need to have 3 monitors. They had no understanding of what are the sliding market boards used for. And so just wanted to thank the staff and everybody else that made that possible because it really opened their eyes. I also wanted to thank Elliot, and I think he's been a very, very honest person when it comes to evaluating the systems we have and the improvements that we need to make to it as we go forward. And I know that when other folks contact the district, talk about how the systems operate, that what we've discovered over the years is being communicated in an honest way. And improvements that need to be incorporated into future projects. So just wanted to say that I think the feedback I heard from San Lorenzo Unified was that it was an amazingly impactful visit. And it really allowed the superintendent, the CBO, and the senior cabinet to get some buy-in from the different levels of their organization into a direction that they wanted to move in. So just wanted to thank everybody for that particular experience that they had over there.
Thank you.
At Bell Avenue, we continue to work over there at the preschool TK project. The modular buildings are in production, currently scheduled for delivery, I believe, on November 18th to be delivered onto site. The concrete footings and curbs have been poured to date, and this received a required encroachment permit for the new water connection from Pinnell Street to the building. The work was scheduled to start on Monday. They did the trenching. Lo and behold, the city maps indicated there was an 8-inch pipe in the street. There was a 6-inch pipe in the street. So given the city's data, we had purchased an 8-inch pipe to connect to their 8-inch pipe, but it's a 6-inch pipe. So we're working through that process right now, how to rectify that. We're also working with the inspectors to verify the location of that tie-in, but that work continues over there as well. There have been partial lane closures in order to facilitate that trenching over there, but we are working through that problem as we go forward right now. The other thing they hit today was some clay pipe that was discovered on site. So that is being replaced as well. As the board may be aware, Bell Avenue has many, many graves across it in terms of pipes, utilities, random stuff. Luckily, nothing has been an archaeological find or anything of historical value or significance. But that is something that we came across today and is being addressed as part of the next phase of construction, which is the installation of underground utilities, including domestic water, sewer, electrical, and low voltage. In addition to that, where we are in schedule, it's not on here because we're still trying to pin it down, but right now we're looking at substantial completion at the end of January with the cease or the termination of construction activities in late February. It's important to understand the distinction between substantial completion and construction stopping. So under the rules of the DSA, Inspector of Record, and so forth, the district is able to occupy the building once it has a certificate of occupancy, and that was deemed as substantial completion. That means the fire alarm works, all the fire safety modes have been confirmed, and the building has all of its vital systems in place. There are still punch list items that occur. There's still construction activities, corrections that occur as well. And typically that continues for 30 days thereafter of substantial completion. Some school districts opt to occupy those buildings when they have the substantial completion and certificate of occupancy. I would tell you that given the population at that site with the preschoolers, you probably do not want to have any construction activities mingling with those students as they go through those punch list items and so forth. And so it's something for the district to decide on terms of when they occupy that building. But that's a consideration that I want to make sure that is communicated to the board and to the staff that that coordination will be important going forward. So right now we're looking at a completion date at the end of February. We are trying to pull that schedule back closer into late January or early February. We will continue to bring updates to the board about our ability to do that, but that is currently where we are on schedule. In terms of budget, pursuant to the district's request or the board's request last time, where we are currently today, on the preschool TK building, we're estimating a total cost of about $4.5 million, and the PS admin building of about $913,000. That's an overall adjustment from the original budget of approximately $700,000. Within that as well, it's important to note that we do have some contingencies, and we also have some allowance back from the fire pump house overall. What's been contributing to those overages, especially over on the PSTK building, is the inclusion of a fire suppression system that wasn't originally in there in terms of the scope, which we had to go back and add on to. Some changes to the HVAC system, as well as there's one more item. HVAC. Additional site work. Apologies. And so that's currently where we're sitting on that budget thus far. As I mentioned before, the budgets include the $400,000 allowance that we put in there for the pump house, which we've been able to reduce down to the overall cost to help absorb some of that, as well as some of the contingencies within the GMP. Any questions on the budget?
No, but I want to say thank you for laying it out like this, so that way I could see the separations of the buildings and the totals and everything. I appreciate this.
And there's something important to point out about the separation of the two buildings. Right now, we are utilizing a allocation based on square footage. The district at this time is elected to do it this way in terms of allocating based on square footage. There is a more elaborate way we can do it where we would assign direct costs to each building. So for instance, if there is certain improvements that are directly associated with the admin building, that would go into the admin building book and so forth. So the accounting practice itself can change a little bit there. And it's important to understand that right now we're using a rudimentary square footage allocation of those costs. These are not direct costs. We're able, by the way in which the modular buildings were contracted to do it that way. However, when we adopted the site contract for the GMP, it was one lump sum. So we didn't break out this particular, set of dirt goes over here, and this particular set of dirt goes over there, and so forth. So there is a way in which we can get a more accurate accounting of this, but for purposes of right now, we've been utilizing a square footage allocation to break up the costs administratively as well as for the site contract.
Yeah, I think for like the purposes in terms of helping us understand some basic things, I like this one. If there is a time when we need to note that because of the difference, it may make a difference in what we're seeing, I think it just let us know when that's the case. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, and the reason why we break up the accounting for this is it's also important to note as well, is that the PSTK building is being primarily funded by a grant. Okay, and that grant dollars, we have to go back to OPSC. There'll be an audit that's conducted, and we will have to report back to the state what do we spend the money on. Okay, and then we will also have to go back and justify any costs beyond that and how those were accounted for. The reason why I bring up the fact that right now we're using a simple allocation of square footage is that there is flexibility in the way the state allows you to report in order to do one of two things. One is to allocate on a direct cost basis, which may increase the cost of the admin and decrease the cost of the PSTK. The other way is to segregate out scopes of work that would be paid for by a separate funding source, whether it be the general fund or a different capital account. And that's something that has been exercised at other districts in the past. Typically, what we recommend when we're doing that approach is that we would go to the Office of Public School Construction, we would sit down with them and would say, this is what we want to do. Will you allow us to do this? If the answer is yes, wonderful, great, we can move forward. The answer is no, then we got to be a little more creative in terms of how we deal with the cost overages, whether it be from the general fund, whether it be from a different account, and so forth. And we look at all the other pots of money that would be available to us. So one of the things that's very important, and Trustee Barnes had pointed this out before, everybody should got their ballot. There is a K-12, K-14 statewide bond measure, Prop 2, that is on the ballot. The trustees, the staff is not allowed to advocate or use any of that, but I am. I would tell you to go vote yes for that. And the reason for that is that there's $4.7 million in pending modernization reimbursements at the state.
You said that was Prop 2?
Prop 2. Yes, on Prop 2. There's $4.7 million of applications already submitted on behalf of the projects that we've completed for the Robla School District, pending on that list. If that bond gets funded, those projects will eventually get funded as well. Those are the reimbursements that we were relying on in order to reimburse the district for the loan that was to be made for the central kitchen project, which is currently on hold. Okay, so that's pot number one. Second reason to vote for Prop 2. There is a $3.9 million new construction application that's pending at the state level. And as the board may recall, we talked briefly about this back in February, that because of the Panhandle development, we are going to have the ability to apply for eligibilities for new construction. And we had, at the time that we had done the reconstruction of Bell, we had no eligibility, but we submitted an application. And the reason why we submitted an application was in the event that that eligibility suddenly popped up, we would already be in line. And if it didn't pop up and our application came up, you know what, we would just withdraw our application. So right now, given the fact that the Panhandle has been moving forward, given the fact that the map's been filed, that eligibility not only covers the existing submitted grant for new construction, but there is potentially additional dollars for new construction beyond that as well. So it's important to understand that those dollars are out there as well as we go forward.
Can I just make a comment? Just for clarity on your sheet, for the amendment part and the pending order for Enviroplex, you did allocate specific to each project because that doesn't show a 8713. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that everything else is except for those two items. So there is certain things.
We could absolutely point to a piece of paper and said, this money went to this source. We absolutely did. So you are correct that factually speaking, it's using a blend of that, but the vast majority of the other costs are divided upon that allocation. Thank you.
And I guess my question is, these projects are in the works, they're moving forward. We are $500,000 over budget.
Yes.
The projects aren't complete, so this is the end all be all. And so I do have concerns about what we're supposed to do to cover the cost of that $500,000 that we are over budget. And I heard you say a couple times general funds. That makes me nervous.
Absolutely.
Um, and and things of that nature. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the increasing cost of these particular projects.
Certainly. And I think that the two things to take into account there is that the way that I would approach it, if the district elected to use the general fund to cover those costs, what I would tell you is you want to make sure that you have the ability to reimburse yourself from those other sources of funds that come back. So from that $4.7 million or from that $3.9 million, you want to make sure that you put yourself in a position so that you can reimburse the general fund for those. So from that standpoint, you can mitigate that concern by making it a cash flow issue, not necessarily a sunk cost issue.
I definitely look to you, Mr. Geraldo, to tell us like what we need to be doing in order to cover these costs. I definitely trust your judgment in terms of like how we are spending money and where these monies are coming from. But I mean, I do have concerns, and I can see this being like, like 700,000, 800,000 over budget because the projects aren't even complete yet. So
Certainly, and what I would note a couple of things about that. First off, which is not being shown here, but was within the numbers, it's about $120,000 of contingency that is within the GMP that's still to be allocated. So, for instance, there's about $120,000 for what ifs that is still within the contracted amount that's contained in that 2.248 million. So there is some cushion there. The clay pipe stuff we hit today is probably about $20,000 we have to deal with. There's electrical issue that's probably another $20,000. So yes, you're correct that these things will continue to occur, and we're going to continue to look at mitigating them as best as we can. The overall challenge is going to be, we have about 120 days till completion, and about 90 days until substantial completion. So from that standpoint, we've already dug up most of everything we're supposed to dig up. We've poured the foundations. There's going to be some additional site work, but the question is, you're absolutely right. What's the other thing that we uncover tomorrow? And that's something that, once again, I think that the district's approach that in the past is to inform the board of those items, and to make sure that they are able to evaluate what the overall impact is, from schedule, but also from budget. And, as we've done at the last board meeting and as we're moving forward, is looking at those contingency numbers. And then if there are change orders that have to be brought to the board, what's important to understand is that those change orders do need to be approved by the board. So it's not going to be willy-nilly, here's $100,000 we just want to unfix. And I know that it's been the superintendent's practice and other folks in the past to make sure that, when those types of events come up, that those are reported out and that, the board's made aware of those types of decisions that are going forward. So just like any other construction project, we try to mitigate as much as we can. But in the course of construction, and given the age of your school sites and the age of the facilities we're replacing, there are surprises that we're going to hit along the way that existed in the previous projects. It'll exist in your future projects. Like I said, we try to do, and what the board was very good at when we did the first reconstruction was, okay, what are all the things we learned? What are all the little tiny things that we messed up on that we need to go address the next time? If you go from Taylor to Robla to Bell to Glenwood, you will see that it gradually gets better, better, and better. It's not because, we had more money or whatever. It's just that each of those school sites had its own challenges. There were things that we never, over here in Robla, there were underground vaults throughout the site. So imagine digging a backhoe into what you think is solid ground, and all of a sudden there's a 20 by 20 foot cavity. And so, okay, we learned we should probably do some underground radar next time we do something like this to verify that we don't have those types of things. So it is a progression. I would love to tell you that I am an expert. I know every little problem we're going to hit and every little thing we're going to do. But if you ever have the lucky experience of remodeling a house, I will tell you that, there is going to be some things that are just going to come up and hit us. And I think from that standpoint, that's why we have some of those contingencies in there. And for things that we just didn't think would possibly come across us, those are things that we, have to come back and say we have to expand scope and address.
A quick question. And you're right, when one understands the history of North Sacramento and really the lack of, for lack of real planning, development planning.
8-inch pipe alone, right?
Yes.
Just the fact that like, the city map says it's an 8-inch pipe.
It's bad in North Sacramento, and if there is a site that has proven that to be true, it's been Bell Avenue. To that end, one question would be, are we mandated to have a maximum or a minimum amount in terms of contingency? And do you think it would be wiser for us going forward in the future to plan for a greater contingency for some of these projects, even if we just did it, site by site?
Sure. So typically you see project contingencies anywhere between 5 and 15%. I think for this project, we carried about 5%. And part of that was just the scope of the project itself. So it came out to about $230,000 a project contingency. And that was above and beyond the allowance that we had put aside for the pump house, which eventually got eliminated. So in our full school reconstructions we did over here, it was probably closer to 10. I think the other thing that the board should recognize is that the way that we were operating previously is that we hid some money in the project contingencies within projects, but we also operated with a program reserve. We were working on a programmatic level. So what that means is that we kept a reserve outside of the projects themselves. Because when we're running multiple projects, we're going to have to pull from that from time to time. We did it a number of times over at Bell. That's a bad example. We had to do that over at Bell a couple of times. And over here at Robla. When we had to go, as you recall, we had that 1.5 year long debacle with the striping and the light they wanted to put out here for the crosswalk that they finally let go. But so we were working on a programmatic basis. And so we always had another chunk of money that we could draw from in order to address those issues. With the bond funds being expended and with the reimbursements from the state program being delayed, we're operating without that programmatic cushion, which the board is used to having. And I think that's an important distinction to make here, is that in the past projects, not only did we have a project contingency, but we also had a program contingency, a program reserve that we were able to draw from as we were going forward with those projects.
But for the previous projects, were they grant funded as well as hardship approved, or were they bond funded?
So the projects all the previous projects were locally funded. So we utilized bond dollars to build them, and we requested reimbursements from them back. And in fact, part of this grant was a reimbursement as well.
All right, if there's no other questions on that, then we can move on to the Main Avenue preschool TK project.
So at Main Avenue, folks, a couple of things that I think that just needs to be communicated directly. First off is that right now we are working with two different options for the building site layouts. And we are moving forward with soliciting the RFQ for modular construction based on those options. And there's a couple of considerations at Main Avenue that's important from a historical standpoint for folks to understand. Right now, there are 10 portable classrooms that are out there that previously served or was serving as interim housing for our construction program when we went to rebuilt Bell and when we rebuilt Robla, and also interim housing when we rebuilt Taylor. Yeah, some of you were here, some of you weren't, but you remember we were busing kids all over the place, right? You were able to drop off at your home site, and then you went up Main Avenue for the day, and you came back to your home site. The original intent was once we were done with interim housing is that we would remove all 10 portable classrooms and that those would just go away. And so we got to the end of the program and we did not demolish those. A couple reasons for that. One is we thought, okay, if we may need interim housing again for a future project. The other one is we just didn't have money to bulldoze them. We ran out of money. What's being proposed right now is that what was originally being proposed is that we would get rid of all 10 classrooms and we replace them with the 6 classrooms that we would have from the grants being funded. The challenge we have is we have program now in those portables. We have support staff, we have other programs that are in there, and the old adage is, have an empty room, somebody will find it, right? So I think programmatically there is a decision that has to be made, and I think Superintendent has been evaluating that overall about what's going to be. But the two layouts are trying to accommodate program that's out there, recognizing that we don't have any dollars to go and build new facilities for those programs as well. So we're talking about administrative offices, we're talking about additional restrooms. So for example, one of the things that's out on the playground, which has been really nice for many, many years, is that we have a portable restroom facility, which I believe you rent, right? Or do we? We currently rent it. And so one of the things that is being discussed right now is, how do we implement this program, this project, and how is that going to affect all those other programs that are out there? And then ultimately, what is it we want at the end of the day for the space to look like? How do we master plan it? And the challenges right now is that, going back to the idea of grant funding, is, for the grant, we have this specific set of money and we have a specific set of scope. And, what the request has been is, how much scope can we cram into that grant? Now, something that's very different about Maine than Bell Avenue, and it's different about all the projects going forward. And you may recall we had this discussion a few months ago, is that the building code has changed. And one of the things that changed, and Trustee Barnes, you asked me this question 4 years ago. Okay, why don't I have solar on my roofs? And I said, hey, you know what? It's a cost issue. I have X amount of dollars. I can build this. I am required to make all my buildings solar ready, which means structurally, every single building that we've built over the last 10 years can support a solar system on top of it. Okay. However, we've elected, due to cost, not to go forward with that. The new building code requires that new construction buildings have a solar offset. And depending on the size of those projects, you have to accommodate a battery storage system. Okay? Those are costs that we did not have to account for at Bell. Those are costs we are going to have to account for at Maine. Okay? So already there's additional scope to that project that didn't exist at Bell. And so once again, we're going back right now and we're saying, okay, how do we optimize the site for the uses that we want for program? How do we deal with the fact that we have programs that have moved into some of these portables? And then ultimately, how do we accommodate these issues? Because once again, there is a drain in terms of the rental facilities for the bathrooms as well that we need a permanent solution to going forward. So those are things we're juggling. It's taken a lot of time. We've employed this two parallel paths to try to mitigate some of the times, but we are going to hit a similar issue, folks, in March of 2027, March 27th of 2025, that we hit with Bell.
What was the date again?
Huh?
Seriously, I'm not joking. Can you say the date again? I need to worry about
March 27th, 2025.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was
I'm learning to put things on paper.
That's okay.
So one of the things there that's very important, I think, that is that we do need to get through that particular design process post haste. We do need to submit that to DSA, because we have to go through a similar process that we did with Bell. We have to enter into a contract with the contractor. We have to make sure that we have all those things. And I think, once again, learning from our experience with Bell Avenue, we need to know, get those approvals as quickly as possible so that we have time to go through the proposed construction budgets and so forth. And so that, once again, we can have this conversation up front saying, okay, what do we think the costs are? How are we going to account for them? And what's the strategy going forward?
How far along? So where exactly in the process are we of making a decision regarding which direction we want to go?
So part of it is looking at the costs. So looking at the proposals come back from the modular companies and saying, okay, how much scope can we pull into this, and how much, or are we just down to a bare bones situation of this is what we can accommodate? Or, all right, can we break it up in such a way that, yes, we'll employ a similar approach where the grant's going to pay for this, and then maybe we build a little admin building with support spaces and what have you elsewhere. I think we're trying to get what those numbers are to evaluate what the options really are.
Do we know when we're going to have those numbers back from the modular company? Okay.
Just for the public, we're hoping for responses in the next couple of weeks and to bring that forward to the board.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Any other additional questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and now we're going to move on to item C, English Learner Services Update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about our English Learner Student Group. and some of the data that we have regarding both learning English and their academic data in ELA and math. And I'm going to start kind of at a high level of looking at that data and wean our way down to something that's actually actionable at the classroom level. So here's what. English learners are an identified student group on the California School Dashboard, and they're identified in all of the accountability measures on the California School Dashboard. In addition, there's a new English learner student group that is going to be on that dashboard this year, and that's called the Long-Term English Learner Student Group, or LTEL student group. Not only are they identified on all the indicators on the dashboard, but they have their own indicator called the ELPI, which is a measure of how well we are teaching them English. So just to give you some reference as to why this is such a significant student group for us is when you look in the state of California and in Sacramento County, there's about, I'm looking at the EL students itself. There's about, similar amount, 19 to 18%. When you look at the Robla school district, we sit closer to in the 30s. And this is pretty much where we have sat for the last 10 years, in the high 30s, sometimes up to the 40s, not going any lower than 35%.
I'm trying to understand what's the definition. I mean, what's the definition around the long term?
The long term, I'll get to what that definition will be.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about what that is. So Ever EL means that you are at one time identified as an English learner, and then you're either continued an English learner or you've been reclassified fluent English proficient. Generally, it takes 5 to 7 years to learn a language. So this reclassified fluent English proficient is a kind of 5-7 year mark. We're trying to get students reclassified in that 5 to 7 year period. Okay. So as you can see for the Robla School District, this is a very large student group. Other than socioeconomically disadvantaged, in which many of these students also sit within that student group, there is no other larger group. Reclassification is a 4 criteria component that's standardized by the state. Criteria 1, there's no wiggle room. You have to reach level 4 on the English Language Proficiency Assessment, the LPAC. Criteria 2 and 3, criteria 3, parent consultation. The parent, they can say they are not sure if they want their child reclassified, but in the end, it is the decision of the district. The consultation means that there's some explanation, some conversation with the parent to come to agreement. So there could be a matter or a time in where the parent says, I don't know, can you give them another year? And, if they're just barely meeting that criteria, they're pretty young, they haven't, maybe it's less than 5 years, that's where we would take that into account and say, yeah, we can keep them as an English learner, maybe for 1 more year. The basic skills is the CASP assessment for grades 3 through 6 in English Language Arts. And for K1-2, it has to be a standardized assessment that all students take. So for us, it's the phonics survey and the fluency assessment for English Language Arts. So these 4 criteria, they have to be met in order for a student to be classified. And this is going to become important in a minute here when we start talking about the long-term English learners and who they are and why they are. So we're going to take a look at what does our data look like? How does our data compare to the county and similar district? And then what are we looking for within that data? And when you just look at the LPAC assessment itself, this is what you see. Are students, how many students are sitting at each proficiency level? There are 4 proficiency levels. As I stated, proficiency level 4 is the point that students have to meet in order to meet criteria 1 for reclassification. These numbers here, though, we want kids to hit that proficiency. You're not looking for that number to be like 30, 40, 50%, because what you're looking for is as they reach that level, you're reclassifying them. So that group is always going out, right? What you want to see is that we're moving from level 1 to level 2, level 2s to level 3, level 3s to level 4. So when you look at our district, and I've put on here our district in Sacramento County, and then I have Anaheim Elementary District. And the reason that I did this is that a lot of times it's hard to look at this data when we're a K-6 district, and the majority of the state is either K-12 or K-8. So I put on here Anaheim Elementary District because Anaheim Elementary District is a K-6 district, and it's a similar district in terms of the demographics of their students. They have high socioeconomically disadvantaged numbers as well as high English learner numbers. They're a much larger district. There are 21 schools, and all of their schools have a dual language immersion program. So when we look from here down to, let's get even closer to apples. That's why I have Glenwood, where we have our dual language immersion program, and Lincoln. Lincoln Elementary in the Anaheim district is very similar in demographics to Glenwood Elementary. So when we look at a similar district, you can see that we're pretty similar across the board in the type of data when you look at how students are doing on the LPAC. So now I want to get a little closer to that data on the LPAC. So that was an overall score in the previous slide. This tells us, overall score, level 4, level 3. But there are 4 domains on the LPAC. So what are we doing in those domains? How are students performing? Are they performing better in some domains over others? And as you can see here, let's see, is this going to do? There we go. The reading domain, we've got, over 30% students still down in level 1 in that reading domain, and very low in the writing domain, especially when you look at the number of students that actually are level 1. It's not the speaking and listening that's holding them back, it's the reading and writing components. So let's look a little closer. So if we start looking at cohorts, how are cohorts doing as they move through each year? So again, we're trying to look at 5 to 7 years towards reclassification, just like with the CASP assessment. There's a target range for level 4. We're trying to get to a certain mean scale score for each student. So overall, you can see that our kindergartners from 22-23 made really good gains, 39% increase in that scale score, which puts them at about the mid-level, mid-level 2. If you look at the scale score ranges for level 2, that puts them at about mid-level 2. And then we move to our kindergartner through 2nd grade. So now we can see 3 years of data. Again, you're seeing pretty good increase in scores, up 38 points in overall. But again, the students are sitting at mid-level 2. When you look at where that 1445.7 score is, that's in the mid-level 2 range again. Is this making sense? Yeah, okay. And you can see they made good gains even in the oral language and the written language. The reason we don't see reading, writing, and listening and speaking is the way the state reports the scores. They combine the listening and speaking to an oral language score, and they combine the reading and writing to a written language score. So now we look at our 3rd graders, and not as high of increases once they get from 2nd to 3rd grade. That increase in their scores is starting to go down. They are still sitting at mid-level 2, though. Now we get to 4th grade, and it's kind of all over the board a little bit, but we're still sitting at mid-level 2. And then we start looking at 5th grade, and notice how the scores, the growth is going down. Only 7.6 points for the overall, 6.6 points for their oral scores, and 8.5 points for the reading, writing, the written language scores. So as they're progressing through the grades, in the early grades, we're making good gains. But as we're going along, those gains aren't staying consistent as they get into the upper grades. And so as a full cohort, all these kids are still sitting at mid-level 2. They're not going to make it to reclassification if they're I can talk loud, I got a teacher voice. And then again, you look at 6th grade, and we see similar data. actionable information. Okay, what's happening? So, what does that mean to us? Well, if they're not making gains to get into level 4, if that whole group is still kind of hanging at mid-level 2, some of the kids are getting higher, but some of them are staying low too. They're not making that progressive growth through each grade level. They're not going to attain level 4, in which we can even start to look at reclassification. And then if they do not get reclassified for the state of California, they start looking starting at 6 years, 6+ years. So if you go to look at the data, the way the state collects it, DataQuest says students that are at 6+ years identified as an English learner. We had 33 students last year that fell into this category. They were still English learners 6+ years later after being in school. So this isn't counting our newcomers or any, kids that have been here less than that amount of time. So and all the kids happen to end up in 6th grade.
Just real quick, so these are all students that started with us in kindergarten and have gone through 6th grade.
Yes, started with us in kindergarten because these were all 6th graders. So they
These
were.
but none of these are 6th graders who, for example, transferred in or came from another school district or.
They could have been because they've just been identified as an English learner. So they could have been identified in a different district and then came to us with already 3 years maybe in elementary school and already identified.
I want to point something out. The children that are 6th graders now would have been first or second graders or something at the beginning of COVID. And that seems to be second grade seems to be when they get their biggest jumps on these scores.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
So could that have led to so many students falling behind, or is this a normal number we see every year?
I can't answer that completely because I've never looked at it quite this deeply to know that. We've always looked at who are our kids that are at risk, which we'll talk about in a minute. But to go hone down this closely to know that it was about 33 or, in that range, I couldn't say for sure.
I'm just wondering because it looked like for the 5th graders or the lower grades, it looks like this isn't trending, these high numbers, right? Of students
if you look, COVID could play a factor in this because you're saying our current 6th graders right now would have been, our current 6th graders are our 5th graders last year. Okay. Last year they did make decent growth. Okay. So we could see better numbers, yes, coming forward.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see.
I'm not trying to make excuses. I just don't want to think this is the norm when there are extraordinary instances or circumstances behind certain students.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we'll see norm for another few years before we can really say, that we can no longer say COVID played a factor in it. We still have to consider COVID to be playing a factor. It's significant to us, though, because this is now, like I said, a student group starting this year, regardless of COVID, that the state is looking at in terms of being its own student group and looking to see, like, what are you doing? The district can be identified for differentiated assistance by this student group, this long-term English learner student group. For a district, if you have 30 or more students, you can be identified. For a school site, you have to have 15 or more who are identified here. Now, here's the caveat. The way the dashboard, because California doesn't do things easy, the dashboard looks at 7 years. The data that's presented to me says 6+ years. So I have to go through those 33 kiddos and say, how many of these 33 kiddos are 7-year kiddos? So 33 could be 7-year, but 3 could be 7-year. I don't know for sure yet where we fall in terms of will we end up with on the dashboard with possible differentiated assistance for the student group, because the state doesn't provide the data that way yet. Okay. I do know that no school site has more than 15 students. So no school sites are going to be identified. I don't think that we are going to be identified, because when you look at our data, we are in the only student group, the only indicator on the dashboard that we were in the green last year was our LP, our English Learner Progress Indicator. Our numbers are looking pretty good that we are making that growth. So if I were to go all the way back to that first slide where we had oops, there we go. This one here. This looks very similar to years past. This is very close to where we've sit in the past. So that kind of tells you, like, oh, it seems like if our numbers are sitting the same, we must be doing similar types of growth each year. Where we have a hard time, I'm going to come back. I'm going to do this out of order because of the way I'm speaking. Where we have a hard time meeting that reclassification criteria is when you look at our English learners and how they're doing on the CASP in English language arts. Our EL student group is significantly lower, both in ELA and in math, than all our students. The students we need to target are our students that are at risk. These are our students that have been identified for 4 or 5 years, and aren't making that adequate growth. If we don't intervene with these students and try to help them get those scores up a little quicker, they could become long-term English learners. So where we're at right now is I know who these kids are. These students fall into categories in terms of they might be dually identified, meaning they also may be special education identified students. They may just be identified for special ed because of speech, or they may be identified for special ed because of learning difficulties. I'm looking at that data right now to see who are we looking at. The state looks at that as well, and the way that they're addressing that is we now have the alternate LPAC, so students can reclassify if they are dually identified, which was very difficult to do in the past. And you can modify, or you can have a provision in taking the regular LPAC where you might not have to take a certain part of it. So for example, if I'm a student who is identified for special ed for speech, and I am non-communicative, I wouldn't take the speaking portion of the LPAC, and I can still now pass the LPAC. That didn't used to be in effect as well. So now that we know who these students are and what our data looks like when we hone it down, what do we need to do about it? First, we need to think about where are we in terms of the domain data we looked at. We looked at the CASP data. We look at our other district assessment data for the lower grade students. What does Tier 1 instruction look like? What are we doing in our Tier 2 instruction, our EL support teacher and our intervention teacher? What are the supports that they're providing for our English learners? Those are the areas we want to look at. What does that first instruction look like? Is that first instruction differentiated enough? Is that first instruction paying attention to the fact that we have English learners in the classroom and providing those supports? Are we utilizing universal design for learning, for example, as part of our Tier 1 instruction? Looking at our assessments, are we utilizing assessments that are allowing students to truly show what they know? For example, math data. If they can't read the directions, are they going to be able to show us what they can do in math? So that's some of the things we need to be looking at, because there are accommodations, for example, that you can ask to have the directions for math turned on when you take the CASP in Spanish. If you're a fluent Spanish speaker, and you can read the directions in Spanish so that you know what you're supposed to do in that math equation, that's an accessibility. Are we truly utilizing those accessibilities as much as we should be? The other thing when I look at the data is that I'm looking at, because our area on the LP is green, that's how are we doing at teaching English as a language. That's usually what the designated portion of the day is about. Because our students are doing so poorly in ELA and math as well, though they seem to be doing well at learning English, it makes me think about where are we with our integrated ELD. Those supports during the school day, during core instruction, making the material accessible, is it being done with intentionality? are we focusing on those extra needs that English learners have? Any questions?
Very thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's nice.
I'll tell you, this is, you've done a lot of really good presentations. Every time you present on the EL program, it's always very informative. This has probably been the most informative in terms of understanding who our students are, how they're progressing, where there might be a bottleneck, and I can see that you are at the point where you can start identifying solutions. So I just want to thank you for this presentation. It was very well done. Then also the identification of the percentage of our students that fall under the was it long-term language learners? That was eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I may ask for one more thing next time you do something where you involve the charts and stuff, which can be kind of confusing.
Uh-huh.
I would appreciate an email maybe the day before our meeting that I can read to understand charts you're going to present.
Email the day before.
Just like what
Oh, you mean with my notes at the bottom? So you
yeah, so that way
okay.
when I'm looking at it, like when I'm in here, I'm not looking at it like trying to play catch up. Like
Yeah.
I think I can figure out what this means, just so that way I don't feel like I should know what it means, and if that makes sense.
No worries. It takes me a long time to figure out how to put it into words. What I'm figuring out up here anyways too.
Like,
So I
just
get it.
something like that, so that way, because I mean, it took me a solid 3 slides to kind of figure out exactly what I was looking at.
Noted.
Yes, so something like that would just really help me.
Okay.
I don't know if it would help anybody else.
Any additional comments, questions? All right. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move forward now to the first reading of revised policies, regulations, and/or exhibits.
This is just cycle in terms of when we need to update board policy, and board policy 6020, parent involvement, is clearly tied to Title I, and I know they update it very frequently, not frequently, maybe every couple years. And then the suggested, CSBA suggested changes are noted in green.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now we'll move on to Section 6, consent agenda, and there's one item that we needed to pull from the consent agenda. And that was a leave of absence for...
We're going to pull the whole personnel report.
Oh, well, we'll pull the whole personnel report. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Let me get back to the... Okay, so first we're going to pull the whole personnel report, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved in second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Can we just do the entire report, or do we need to pull out the one specific
I
item?
would pull out the one specific and then vote all 5.
Okay.
And then
Okay, all right, so we're going to approve, we're going to pull out separately the approved leave of absence for Jenna DeLuz, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And there will be one abstention. And
no, you approved all the others.
Yeah.
But Jen.
oh, okay.
And
I'm
then
sorry.
now you'll vote.
I stand corrected. Okay, so now I will entertain a motion to approve. So I am voting in favor of the personnel report. And, all right, and then now I'll entertain a motion to approve the leave of absence for Jenna DeLuz.
So
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. Okay, we'll move on now to action items. Action item A, approve the 2024-25 bullying prevention MOU with SCOE.
So move.
Second?
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
No, just annual contract with SCOE regarding our bully prevention program.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, approve 2024-25 MOU with Sweat 3 Ballet Florico, district-wide.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
This is just, the Sweat 3 is at Glenwood, and we have an opportunity to offer it at all the other 4 sites.
Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, approve 2024 Robla Governance Handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved in second. Is there any discussion or debate? The only thing that I'll say on this is, just for those of you who don't know, this is a work product that is put together by the Robla School Board. We get together. We held a separate retreat. We hold a retreat where we kind of get together and we go over all of our values, our principles. We go over our rules of conduct and things like that. And the idea is to create a document upon which we can all agree. And we agree this is how we're going to work together. It's a great opportunity for the governance team to develop common values, common goals, common principles, and rules of engagement, shall we say. And it really helps us to stay on track. It helps us to stay focused on what it is that we're here to do, and that is to provide a quality education and a safe environment for our students. So I want to thank CSBA for their role in helping us to bring this all together. I want to thank staff who participated with us, and I want to thank each of my fellow board members for the time and energy and thoughtfulness that they put into the development of this governance handbook.
Great.
And I'll just add, we do put a lot of work into this, and it shows. Our board functions quite well, and that is unfortunately not the norm for a lot of districts. So yeah, our hard work actually does pay off. So yes, thank you to
Thank you,
all of our board members.
everybody.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, approve service agreement with California School Boards Association Gamut Meetings, Gamut Policy, and Gamut Policy Plus.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item E, approve amendment of superintendent's contract extension and corresponding salary changes through June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, you
Okay.
can.
I just want to say thank you. I really love working here in Robla. I love working with the board. I appreciate the partnership and the collaboration, and I look forward to doing more great work here for the community and the school district. Thank you.
I would like to respond to you. We were very blessed to have you interview or apply and interview with us. You have really brought us into a brand new direction that's all your own, and we are really enjoying what you're doing with our schools.
Blessed was the exact word I was going to use.
Blessed.
Yes.
Oh, bless. Triple bless.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to Section 8, board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Devine,
Nothing at this time?
Trustee Cardona,
No request.
Trustee Hamilton Stark,
Nothing at this time.
okay, Trustee Barnes, and I have none, so that'll be it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.